On this episode of RC Kicks, we're taking a look at this, a budget basher for under £100. Really? Let's find out if it's any good. I don't know. Hi, welcome to RC Kicks. On today's show, well, I've been asked to take a look at this and I'm trying to be open-minded, but can you really get a 1/10 buggy brushless for under £100? It's going to be a hard sell, that's for sure. Well, it's called Speed. Well, it's not actually what it's called, but they put Speed on the box. So it's got a lot to live up to when you stick the word speed on the box of a bashing buggy. It's actually called XLF X-03A. Enough with the stupid names, China. Come on. Oh my God, with the numbers and names. Just use a word. We're not computers. We're not into all these numbers. That's a part number, not a product name. Anyway, so off to a bit of a bad start on that front. So let's have a look at the box. Well, it looks a bit familiar. I can't say it hasn't been inspired by someone else. Well, there we go. Now, apparently, it actually says that it can do 60 kilometers an hour. We'll be the judge of that. Thanks very much. As you can see, my box didn't actually make it that well. It's a little banged up, but the car is fine. That's kind of to be expected when stuff's coming such a long distance. Now, I have to give them credit. They've actually gone for a coloured box, and I think the box is done reasonably well. So, presentation, if it was a box that hadn't been halfway around the world, I would say the presentation of the outside of the box is okay. So, no issues there. I have had boxes that are just basically completely brown with just a black outline of a car right at the bottom end, right up to some really fancy boxes. Now, is it important that you've got a fancy box? Yeah, I have to say, you know, it projects the quality of what you're getting. If people can't be bothered to put effort into a box, then why should they be bothered to put effort into an actual product, which is much harder to produce? So boxes, yes, they do need to be to a certain level. And I think this one is a pass, even though the name is a bit rubbish. And some of the English is interesting. Wheel twist angle is flexible and changeable. Well, they're English words, but just not in an order that I have seen them before. I think we've got some other weird ones. It is made of engineering nylon, which strengthens its wearability and crushworthiness. I can understand that. There's a couple of weird ones over here that don't seem to rudder. What? Anyway, there we go. Metal gears, apparently. So, and it's got metal shock absorbers, and it's got metal drive bones, and a high-speed carbon brush motor. But this is brushless. Hey, well, there we go. Apparently, there's a few different options you've got. You can get a brushed version, which is an X-03. Then this one is an X-03A. Then you can get a different body version, which is brushed, which is an X-04, and an X-04A, which is the brushless version. If anything, personally, I think the cab one looks a bit better to me, but that's not the one I've got here. But I'm kind of interested, being that it's brushless. Right, let's open it up and take a look at what you get. So you've got to be mindful that not everyone is going to drop £400 on something like £400 or £500, like something like this, but they want to be in the RC hobby. So, budget stuff. I try to be open-minded about it. I really do, because it's very easy to just get on your high horse and go, it's just rubbish. You know, obviously this is not going to be better than a £500 armour or tractors or something like that, because they've just got so much more money to spend on the unit and the build quality and things like that. But does that mean that someone who has a super tight budget should be left out in the cold? Well, no, obviously not. And something like this might be perfect for someone who really wants to get into RC, but just doesn't have the budget. So let's see what you get for your money. So we have some instructions. little bit of instructions. Then we have a charger. Yeah, don't use these are rubbish. For £17 you can pick up a really decent Lipo Charger, so you don't need to suffer with these. But obviously £17.99 I think is the cheapest I've seen it. It's still an investment, especially if you're on a super tight budget, because if this is £100, that's 18% extra that you've got to find. But you can get by with this if all else fails. Then we have some spoiler thing that gets bolted on the back. Hey, I'll have to attach that. Then we have a battery. That is going to drive a 1/10. A 2S LiPo, 7.4 volts, 1600 milliamps. Large power, apparently. Bloody hell, that's tiny. Okay. Then what else do we get? We get... Oh, we've actually got some spare parts. Some steering section, and a spare upright. Now this is a good thing to see, because if you're on a real budget, what you don't have is that much extra money to buy little bits and pieces. So if they've given you a few things that you think that you might break, that's also a bit of a bonus. Then you get a little screwdriver. Oh, that's to put a wing on, I guess. A bit of foam, and that's pretty much all you get. Right, let's have a look. Oh, we're stuck down here. There we go. Box. This is a pretty standard way that I've seen a lot of budget cars come now, where it sits on a plinth and then you have two side plinths where the wheels sort of lock into place. It works very well and it's very simple. So I've seen it on more expensive cars, so it's good. No issues there. And here we have the car itself. Okay, they've put the transmitter underneath. That doesn't look familiar. One thing I think they need to address is they've actually put the controller up through here, and what's happened is it's basically gouged into the foam. So that is a bit disappointing, because it means it's actually come partly damaged. I'm sure if left for a while it may come out. It's just foam, but that hole is too tight around the foam. So here we go. Quality wise, doesn't surprise me either way. It probably is exactly what I expected from them, apart from the design. The design looks very familiar, but yeah, it's kind of what I expected. And that's pretty much all you get in the box. So first impressions out the box, I like the body. Obviously it's copied from somewhere else, but the execution and the polycarbonate that's used is fine. It feels pretty rugged. The printing job that's done on it is completely fine. The rear spoiler was super easy to fit, and it's really flexible. I think you may end up smashing it and possibly breaking the rear upright. You do get a spare one, so if you're going to really bash the life out of it, that might be something to watch, but it seems reasonably flexible. It does feel a bit cheesy and looks... I think the plastic is a little bit naff, but it does help the body. It does look like something that suits the car, but the quality and the execution, not so brilliant. Now, what do you get inside? Well, it is brushless, so that's good to see, even though the little tiny brushless motor looks a bit lost in this 1/10, especially with these massive, great big wheels and tyres. The battery you get, yes, it is tiny for this chassis. There's plenty of room. You can definitely upgrade later on from that point of view. It would be nice in an ideal world to have a battery that was a bit more than 1600 milliamps that filled this space, but you have the option to add a bigger battery later. We will test to see how long that tiny little battery will last, so maybe it will prove me wrong and you'll get a decent runtime out of it. Servo, I think it's a full-size servo, maybe slightly smaller, but one thing that's nice is it is a connector with a standard 3 cable connector, so if you want to whip that out later on, or if it fails, you can swap it without having to buy a new electronic speed controller and servo at the same time. That's a definite plus. There's no servo saver as such, but you have got a lot of flex in the front wheels, and looking at it, it seems to be the cross member in the steering is what flexes. So when the wheel gets hit, the vibration will travel up and flex that piece of plastic. You do get a spare one as well, so I guess that's the sacrificial part if you really whack it. Wheels and tyres are fine. There's no foam in them whatsoever, and they're not glued, but the actual material that's used for the tyres is completely acceptable. They're not rock hard or anything like that. Arms, yeah, you can see where the budget is. Budget is very limited. They're okay, but the plastic quality, like the big front bumper, it's nice and flexible. It has the oval crushing design, which is very popular these days, and it seems to work well. Also, you have place for lights if you want to add lights later on. There's two little spotlights at the front that you can actually feed through and screw into. Battery clip is, yeah, that's a design I've seen before. And you've got plenty of space for a battery as well, so getting the battery in and out, super easy. Electronic speed controller, well, God knows what that is, but if it does the job and it gets you going, hey, there is plenty of space. You could pretty much put in anything you wanted down the line. And I suppose if you've got other bits lying around from other projects, maybe you could throw them into this pretty easy. The diffs are nice and smooth, so I'm really happy with that. That feels lovely. It's not notchy or anything, so that's good to see. You do get universal drive shafts on this, which is funny because I've seen a few people comment that the dog bones have fallen out, but on this one it has universal shafts front and rear, so they can't fall out. So maybe that's been upgraded. I honestly don't know from a previous version. You get metal uprights as well, but they're cast, they're not machined. So yeah, they're better than plastic, and you get metal hexes as well. There's a bit of play in the front wheels, they're a bit slappy. It's supposed to have full bearings, but there's a lot of play in there. But then this is not exactly going to be a precision buggy anyway, it's for bashing. One thing that I think they really shot themselves in the foot for, and I think they've done a reasonable job for this price point, but the suspension is a total letdown. It's just pogo sticky. Now they went for metal caps and metal parts to the suspension. Totally waste of budget. I would rather have seen complete plastic shocks but oil. Now you'd think, okay, well, I'll open it up and I can put oil in them. Maybe it was shipped with no oil, but people have done that and they leak like a sieve, so you can't do that either. So yeah, I would rather have seen them lose the bling, save a few pence, and spend it on actual oil shocks. Now this is going to be bouncing around in the garden, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But if you're looking down the line and you want to upgrade this as you get more money as you go, then obviously changing all the shocks is quite an expensive thing to do, especially as you're going to take these off and throw them away, but you've actually paid some money for these. So I'd rather have seen them invest a little bit more money in making these proper oil shocks. So I think upgradability of this is pretty good. You've got plenty of room to mess around with. This body is huge, so you're not strapped for space. In the manual, you get a full breakdown of every part, which is good to see. So if you need to strip it down, build it up again, or replace any parts, you've got that in the manual, so that's nice to see. Well, there you go. That's kind of an overview of it. The chassis is fine. Oh, just one other thing. It has a metal plate at the front, so that when you jump it and things like that, it's got a bit more protection, which is nice to see. So it's good that they spent a few pennies on this bit here. Right, that's enough waffling about it. I'll put a link in the description if you are interested in one of these. Also, it's got all the specifications and stuff like that. Comment below if you are on a really tight budget. Is this something that you'd be interested in? Do you want to see more budget-friendly cars on the show instead of the high-ticket items? Comment below. Me personally, I like to do a whole range because not everybody has thousands of pounds to throw at RC. So trying to find good quality, good value products does interest me personally, but it's down to what you guys and girls want to see. Right, that's enough. Let's take it out, blast it around and see if it changes my mind and I actually enjoy it. Right, I've got my GPS and I've stuck it on the car. So do we think it's going to do 60 kilometers an hour as it says on the box, or do you think they might have been telling a few porcupines? Comment below, yes, no, and then carry on watching to see if it actually does it. "31 kilometers an hour. Oh well, there you go, that's what you get." Right, let's bash it a bit and see if it's any good. Straight in the stinging nettles. Right, I took it out for a blast. How did I get on? Did it change my mind? Did I have any issues? And did I find anything really good? So we're going to start with a positive first. The tiny little battery you get with it gave me about 19 minutes of average driving, speed runs, donuts, the usual sort of standard stuff you're going to do. And it got to 8%. I stopped at 8% because the range just came down. But obviously you're getting close to sort of 5% where you're going to cut off anyway. So you're probably realistically looking at about 20 to 21 minutes of runtime. Now that's pretty good from a tiny little battery, and it's understandable, I guess, because you're running a brushless motor that's very efficient. Now you've got plenty of room for a bigger battery, so it wouldn't be that difficult to pick up a battery that's sort of 3,500, 4,000 milliamps, and you'll be driving this truck all afternoon. You'll get a good 40 minutes out of it, I would expect. So that, I like that. And the little battery, yeah, you could live with that. I think you wouldn't have to replace it straight away for sure. Spend the money on the charger so you can turn around the battery chargers faster and go out and play with it more versus the little trickle charge that takes hours. So that's the plus. One negative, I found the steering is insanely all over the place and sloppy. I don't think it's to do with the steering mechanism itself. The problem seems to be coming from the uprights. There seems to be way too much slack where the bearings are, where the actual drive shaft goes through. There's too much play, which means that the steering is a bit all over the place. Fine for a basher, but just a little bit annoying when you're trying to be a bit more controlled. Now that's something they could really fix in the factory. I don't know, I will take off the wheel and have a look. I'll put a comment below here if I find anything, but it seems to be where the bearings are. So I'll have a look at that. I don't know if there's anything you can do, whether you can shim it or what, I don't understand. It might have something to do with they changed from dog bones to universal drive shafts. I don't know if that kind of improved things, but they weren't quite the right ones or what, I don't know. But I'll check in it and I'll put a comment below if I find anything of interest. Obviously, the shocks are... It needs oil shocks. It is reasonably fun to kind of bounce around a little bit, but as soon as it gets on anything a bit rough, you start to lose control of it and it bounces around, where you want it to glide more across bumpy things and feel like you're more in control from that side of it. So definitely the manufacturers need to be looking at improving the suspension for sure. Get rid of these, put oil shocks on. just do it. That would improve this truck dramatically. That and there's the wayward steering aspect. Apart from that, speed-wise, yeah, well, they kind of said 60 kilometers an hour. Yeah, no, not even close. That was 31 and it was consistent. So I don't know whether that's just this truck or what, but that's what I got on the standard battery, driving on a pretty flat open surface with no wind. 31, so miles off. But I would say for bashing, it's fast enough. But if you want to do speed runs, yeah, you'd kind of want a bit more speed. But I actually quite like the motor in this. I think it's reasonably suited. Yes, the top end is not there, but the actual zoominess of it and the torque of the pull away and the wheelies, I found it okay. So I wouldn't want to naturally rip out the motor straight away. I think I would live with it. I'm more concerned about the suspension and the steering aspects of it. But all in all, yeah, I think it could be a good platform for someone who has zero budget, wants something to bash around and enjoy, but as they get a few pound here and there, they can actually upgrade it. The servo that does the steering I found was pretty fast. No issues with that side of it. I don't think it's the servo that's causing the issue with the steering at all. So there you go. That's my review of the X-03A. Link in the description if you're interested in one of these. Comment below, what do you think? Have you got one? Have you had any experience with it? I'd like to know someone who's had one for a while. Comment below, let me know. Thanks very much. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.